You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Battista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So, if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your, stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Florence Ann Romano. How to make friends after 40. Ladies, welcome to today's show. I am here with Florence Ann Romano. She is a personal growth strategist. She's an author, a philanthropist, and businesswoman with an amazing sparkling personality. And if you're watching this on Zoom, some killer glasses. So who is she? Well, after spending more than 15 years as a childcare provider, Florence Ann was known as the City Nanny. She's the authority on childcare and family and village support in the new millennium. She was born and raised just outside of Chicago, and she wants to show people that not only is the saying "it takes a village" true, but also how important it is to have a community to do that. Her latest book is called Build Your Village, Guide to Finding Joy and Community in Every Stage of Life, which I'm super excited to chat about. With an eye for marketing, Florence Ann flourishes as both an advisor for and the vice president of business strategy for Yakety Yak. She's a proud member of the board of directors at the Children's Research Fund and Female Strong, and founding member of Sesame Street's Leadership Council. And she's been featured on over 500 national and local media outlets across the country. I'm so excited to chat with you. How did you get into this advocacy community? What's the story? How did you get there?
You look at my bio and you're like, well, yeah, how did that happen? This seems very strange. But after being a nanny for as long as I was, over 15 years, I really felt like I had a very special gift given to me. I got to be in people's homes. I got to see the dynamics of families. I was always very curious about human beings and how they complemented each other, how they collaborated with each other, how they fought with each other. I just liked the dynamic of the human relationship. And so after seeing as much as I did and hearing as much as I did as a nanny, and I started doing a lot of advocacy around childcare in the new millennium and what families looked like and how you supported one another, I started really honing in on the village concept. And I was raised in an old school Italian family. My grandparents lived with us growing up. So I was born into that like quintessential village.
Right.
And I thought, hey, not everybody's born into that. So when you're not, does that mean you don't deserve it? And furthermore, when COVID hit, I saw everybody lose their village. Everything was taken away from them in terms of support. And then that even shined a even brighter spotlight on the fact that we were really designed for people. And when it was time to rebuild our communities after we came out of that hibernation, I noticed that people really didn't want to connect again. And they were afraid to do it, didn't know how to do it, and thought that maybe those villagers were just going to show up at their front door carrying a lasagna ready to help change.
Right.
And I'm like, it's not going to happen. So how do we find the village? Like, where's the phone number? Where are the directions? I thought, you know what? Time we wrote a book with a boat, build a boat. Yeah, build a boat. Build a boat, but also write a book that actually gave us the instructions for this village building. And so that's what helped me come up with the idea for Build Your Village, a guide to finding joy and community in every stage of life, what you just mentioned, my most recent book. And I created 6 archetypes of villagers that you identify with in the book. Who am I of these 6 and who do I need?
Oh my gosh, I love it. I mean, this topic is near and dear to my heart because I was living in LA for like 25 years. And the village yeah. Well, I raised my 3 kids there, and it was really interesting because I lived in this really urban place, right? And I was part of communities, but I didn't feel in community. And now after a lot of different adventuring to figure out what kind of community I really want to create, I live in a place that really feels a lot like a village, and I'm building community. It's been so much easier. So start by telling me about the archetypes. And also my question once you get into that is, are the archetypes do we change as like when you're raising toddlers is a different kind of thing than when you're like in midlife or later?
I love that question. Does it change? It's one of the most popular questions, I have to say, because people automatically get nervous thinking, okay, these are who I am and this is who I need and that's always going to be. And that's not the case. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But so my 6 archetypes, and I'll give a little example.
Yeah.
Each of them, if that's okay. I won't go into too much detail.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say them quickly at first, then I'll give more detail. Accepting, dependable, cheerleader, communicator, organizer, and healer. Now, I do that on purpose. Marty. I say it on quickly because I always can see on people's faces, as soon as I say it, you can start to see people automatically cast people into those roles based on context clues. And that's what I want you to do. Right. I want you to think of this as casting a movie or a play. These are your main characters. And once you do that casting, you're going to look back and you're like, okay, now I don't have 3 out of those 6. And maybe that's why I'm waking up feeling a little depleted, a little sad. My cup is not filled up. I'm not feeling joyful. Maybe I'm missing something here. Or you think to yourself, okay, I think I have all of this. Or I only have 4 out of the 6, but I don't need the other 2. I'm okay. But why am I still having a problem in my relationships? Well, maybe you have the wrong people sitting in the wrong seat or the right people sitting in the wrong seat.
Interesting.
And you have to kind of shuffle the deck, fire some people, move them around. So we'll get into a little bit of that in a second, but the definitions to them. So accepting, I always say, it's probably the first one you're going to cast. It's the non-judgmental one. It's the person you're going to confess a secret to. And you know that they're going to keep it, ironclad. The dependable person, they're actually going to answer their phone. That's the emergency contact. I don't answer their phone anymore. I'm like 25 people's emergency contacts, all for their kids' schools, which I laugh because I do answer my phone because I get nervous that it's one of my friend's kids at school.
Right.
So that's the only reason why. Then there's the cheerleader. Yeah, of course, you think of the rah-rah sort of thing, but this is someone that inspires you. If you're going through a life change or a transition, they're going to show up for you in that moment. They're your hype person. Then there's your communicator. They have your best interest at heart. They're curious and even tempered, and they can see other perspectives. They don't turn up the heat on your stove. They put a lid on it. Important. Organizer, you can delegate to them. They're going to be able to give you that peace of mind to release that control. I always say declutter both your home and your mind.
Right.
Everyone says, do you have a favorite out of the 6? I don't have a favorite, but one that I probably have a soft spot for is the healer. And that's the one who walks next to you through it, whatever the it is in your life. It doesn't mean they fix you or fix the situation, but they're consciously compassionate and they're kind of your North Star in your life to kind of guide you, walk next to you. So those are the 6. And like I said just a little bit before when I touched on it, you're not necessarily going to need to fill all 6 of these roles. You could have 5 accepting villagers, 3 dependable, and no communicators, because maybe at this time in your life, you don't need that role filled.
Okay.
But there may come a time in your life where you do need it. And just like you just asked me that question, do you ebb and flow out of these 6 villagers? I love that question because this work seems very needy. It's all about me, selfish. What do I need? What do I want? Well, I'm also asking you in this book to think about, how do you show up for others? Who are you to other people? You learn about yourself that way too. And you're going to learn about what you need from that as well. So you also may need to say to yourself at some point, you know what? I've always been really good at being the dependable villager. But at this time in my life, I am booked, I am overstimulated, I am overwhelmed, and I can't do that right now. But I can be a really good healer. I know I can do that. I always say for New Year's, instead of saying I'm going to go to the gym every day, I'm going to do this, wouldn't it be great if you picked a villager and you said, I'm going to really lean into this year. I'm going to really work on this as a skill because I feel like I can do it. And
I love that.
So
great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay. So I have so many questions just because I talk to a lot of women, who come to work with me, or I hear them on social media. And there's a lot of women that feel isolated and alone because they are doing everything.
Yeah.
And they don't ask for help. They don't make time to create connection with any of these people. And they have a lot of stories around that. And so when you think about all the family systems that you were part of and really think about the myths about that, what did you see? You know, like why are we isolated, and why are we not doing anything about it, really?
I always say that just like public speaking is like the number one thing most people are afraid of in the world. I mean, not for me, but I talk to a wall. I don't really care where you put me at. And I mean, but there are other things I'm afraid of, like don't put me in an elevator. So I mean, that's what are you gonna do? But I always say that the thing that ties public speaking as the number one fear in this world is asking for help. And I think the reason why it's difficult for people to ask for help, especially women, is we're afraid that there's a debt that's owed there. And we don't know if we're going to be able to repay it. And that looming over you, that outstanding debt, makes you feel like you're selfish, or you're constantly asking for favors, or people feel bad for you. You're weak. You can't handle it on your own. You're comparing yourself to everyone else you see on social media who seem to have their life together. The life looks perfect, whatever it is. We get in our head about it. So that we get in our own way with the asking for help part of it. And in true relationships and true friendships, it's not tit for tat. But you also have to be mindful of being, someone that's walked all over or taken advantage of because of kindness. So there is a delicate line that you do have to balance on. But I don't want that fear, because that's the extreme, get in the way of doing what is the moderation, which is knowing that that is the give and take of relationships. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not be okay. Sometimes in a true relationship, that circle, you're going to come around that, that bend on, to the upper part of it again, where you're going to hopefully be able to pay it forward. And just one more note about that. People condemn themselves and what they go through and their life experience and think, man, I have so much shame about this. But I always think, okay, the trauma I've gone through, the devastation or sadness, whatever it is, you've heard that phrase, probably the mess becomes your message. And I love that. But beyond that, hopefully what happens then is because of what you've gone through, you have a more empathetic heart. You're going to be able to connect with people more deeply and more people because of your life experience that hopefully you're going to be vulnerable about. So there are so many positives to letting down that guard and letting people in, but therein lies the rub. That's not the easiest thing for people to do, is to allow people in that way and have someone reach to you and you reach back. Not easy.
Yeah, totally. And let me ask you this, I think that when we're in different phases of our life, being in community or creating community or having a village contextually becomes easier, whether it's like your neighbors and you're all having kids, or you're in a school or a PTA or your work community. Right. And I talk to women that are, in a different phase of life, and they are afraid to either change because they don't want to lose the community that they have, even if they may have outgrown it or it's not serving them. That was my story. Or they get somewhere and they're like, I don't even know how to do this. And they say it's hard to make friends as an adult. I have not found that, actually. Like, what? So how do, and I know this is all in your book, which you should, if all my listeners take my advice and buy every book that I tell you to buy, you should have a big ass bookshelf by now. So I hope you're keeping up. This is what needs to go on it.
Sure, you look over there.
I know. I love that. So how do you start?
Yeah.
How do you start if it's not baked into your current phase of life?
And that's one of my favorite questions too. And my secret sauce, I'll let you all in on it. And no one ever expects me to say it, but as soon as you try it, I guarantee you it's going to change your whole vibration. The best way for you to take your first step is through philanthropy. I believe, I don't know what the meaning of life is. One day we'll find out maybe, but I always say, at least I know my meaning of life, hopefully, is to live a life in service of others. And if you can serve in whatever way you decide to do that, if that's really your ethos and you're going to put that into the world, that is going to expand your world, and it's also going to expand your opportunities for connection. And so why I say philanthropy is, if you can throw it into Google, something you're interested in, let's say you're new to a town, you don't know anyone, you don't know how to connect to people, you don't want to join a book club or meet people, so maybe through a church or whatever you subscribe to in terms of religion or spirituality. Well, you think, but I know things that are important to me. You're going to maybe research that a bit, see what opportunities, whether it's a food kitchen, a soup kitchen, food kitchen, or, volunteering with the elderly or something like that, anything it is. You can find that opportunity, and then hopefully you go and you're already going to be in a room of like-minded people.
Right.
You're going to be with people that share a similar ethos to you, to use that word again. And that's going to hopefully bring down that guard a bit for you, because it's not as high stakes now. You're all there for the same reason. So hopefully you're going to be able to do two things. You're going to give back in a way that makes you feel like, okay, I'm leaving some handprints on the world that I can feel really good about.
Right.
I'm going to meet people that have similar values to me. And maybe, just maybe, you're going to start to see some relationships bud from it. And all of a sudden, you're going to see a community start to grow.
I think that's a really great example of being intentional about, not trying to fit yourself into the latest trend. Like, oh, I should go play pickleball because it's what everyone's doing to meet people. Right. And if that's not your jam, right? Or your comfort level, like, is to really find out, like, where can you be of service and where can you create connections based on a mutual desire to add value in the world. And I think that's such a beautiful thing. So when you're sort of creating your village, because when you were reading the list, I'm going to go back to that. I was thinking of the same person for almost like 4 or 5 of those 6.
Love that. Yeah.
So, is that common? Like, yeah, it is.
Absolutely. You can have one person that has all of those qualities, certainly, but here's the caveat to it. You don't want that one person to be your only friend.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's way too much pressure on them. And, it's the same way, like, you don't want to look at your spouse or your significant other and think you have to be my everything.
Right.
Everything, and you don't understand everything about me, then we're not meant for each other, and you don't understand me. I mean, oh my gosh, my girlfriends, we always laugh and say, they say, I'm not married, but they say, my husband definitely knows me the least compared to like my girlfriends and stuff like that. But I don't need him to know me that way, because I have my girlfriends that take up that space in my heart or in my life. That's who I go to for that. He's there for other reasons, for different support, that there's a different commitment that's made there. But that's an important note for all relationships. You cannot make someone or one person your everything, because you are definitely not setting them up for success and not setting yourself up for it either. It's not fair to either of you.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really huge, because when I think about that person, she's like my champion, my cheerleader, my sister, all those different things. But there's times when she's doing her thing, right? And she's got her season and her phase, right? And I think that's the other thing, is that when we have villages, sometimes they're virtual or they're global, right?
Yeah.
Like they're those people that are there for you, even though they're not there for you every single day in the real. And I think we need both, right? Because I know, to some extent, it's easier to have people that you can phone, but like you don't have to do anything with. But that makes you feel lonely and isolated.
Sure. I mean, connection looks different to everyone. I may not want to leave my house, a certain day or actually like see people in person, but I definitely need to make sure I've texted sufficiently with my best friend that day. And then I feel like, okay, I've connected in some way. Other days I'm like, get me out of the house. I need people, got to see people, need to, hug someone, whatever it is. Different days bring on different needs and feelings. And the important part about this work too is I'm asking everyone to do something very vulnerable, very brave. Not everybody wants to look in the mirror at what's missing in their life or what needs tending to or what's broken. And so this work, while it's not a heavy lift in terms of like reading it and doing kind of the gut checks and action steps I have in it, it's easy in that way because we've all read those self-help books that you're like, okay, do these 27,000 things. And then maybe a year from now, you're going to feel a little bit better. And you're like, no, they're not going to do that. So I want something I can do today, now, take that step forward. Seems like it's, I can take a bite out of it and it make a difference. Small steps, big results. That's what it should really be about. But understanding too, that as you're doing this work and you start to see things maybe that feel a little icky, okay, good. Like acknowledge the fact that you're seeing stuff that you want to change. That means that there's only one place to go, and that's up. And you only have the promise, the hope that this is working for you, because that is what you're supposed to do. You should be vetting this in your life, because most of the time people are coming to me, they're coming to you and saying, I'm feeling disconnected. I'm feeling lonely. I'm not feeling seen, heard, and understood. I don't know why. Where is something missing? And just like a doctor's trying to diagnose the problem, you're doing the same thing for yourself here. So understand and say, something doesn't feel right, something is off, and I need to go figure out and diagnose what that problem is. And hopefully that's the work you're going to do with this village building, is you're going to diagnose the problem, and then you're going to have the steps to get you to where you want to be.
So what are some of the gut check questions?
Gut checks, yeah.
Now, what are some of the gut check questions that our listeners can kind of start to hold up
I'll show you
the truth.
Just here, so here's the book. So at the end of each chapter, I felt like, okay, if I say all of this stuff, are people going to be like, all right, what do I do with all of that?
Right. Yeah.
Or there's like no direction. So that's what the gut checks are for. It's like, what did I learn in this chapter? And then what action steps am I going to do to actually make good at it? So you'll see like at the end of the first chapter.
Great. Yeah.
And so, for example, the gut checks for the Dependable Villager, I ask you to make a list of people you depend on, and then make a list of people that depend on you, and see if those lists are equal. Why?
I don't know. Well, wait. Let's just talk about that for a second before we get into it. Because I think for most women who are listening, the list of people who depend on them is so long.
Yes, of course.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly. Or I just, talk with a client who is a caregiver of a parent, right? We have a lot of people who are caregiving parents right now. They're depending. Children, parents, schools, PTAs, teachers, churches.
Everything. No pun intended. Well, let's go.
Yeah. And so, like, who do we depend on? And so when someone says, like, I have that one person, or I don't really trust anyone, really, what do you do with that? Like,
I think it's a deeper question as to why you're not able to do that. And maybe that you're going to discover that on your own. Maybe you're going to decide to, therapy, counseling, or, you're going to make a promise to yourself that you're going to be more transparent with your friendships, or you're going to call your mom more, talk things out, whatever it's going to be. You're going to try to address that. Again, I'm going back to this idea of the mirror. Sometimes we don't want to look at it. So if you're not trusting people, if you're not leaning into this, but it's clearly a place that is unstable in your life, then the real question is, do you want to fix it?
Right.
That's what I want to know. Do you want to fix it? At the end of the book, and not to give anything away, but I do ask the question, well, here are the directions. I've given you the directions to the village. You asked me for them. Here they are. But I can't make you get in the car and drive there.
Right.
So all of this work still takes you saying, I want to change something in my life. And I can't make you. No one can. And that is the truth in life, always, in general. Unless you want it, nothing's going to change. So this is exactly that. It's just another category of it.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, right, like people are just going to show up at your door with a casserole, right? If they don't know.
Once you find that villager, maybe then, that person is showing up at your door at the casserole, but they're just not going to be manifested out of thin air.
No, for sure. So I think that's a really important one. Let's play again. So just like go through what's another one that's like just randomly flip to it.
Russian roulette.
Exactly.
You'll open up to, because I want to give the readers like an actual thing, not me just make up something. Okay. So each chapter, by the way, is going to be a different villager.
Yeah.
So you'll see. So like this one, again, is something in the dependable or organizer category. So this is emergency contacts, who you list as an emergency contact. But what I want to focus on is the action step. So what I tell you here is offering up your services. What can you offer in your village right now in this season of your life? If a friend is going out of town, ask if you like them, if you can water their plants, get their mail, something like that. Be aware of time, listing your responsibilities, prioritizing, organizing, responding to texts in a timely manner. I'm going to give you all a little tip with that. So we all get busy. We all get these texts and emails coming in. And I never want people to think I don't care. And we live in a world of instant gratification. So now people think if you don't answer them, they are not a priority in your life. So I started feeling bad about that. So I thought, how can I do this where I feel like I'm still able to have like my time or like, and I can still focus, but also still make people know that they're seen and I care about them. So I'll have a text come through. Maybe I'm busy or whatever is going on. And I'll say, confirming receipt, eyes on this in about 3 hours or whatever it is. And I'll tell them. And then, I send an emoji or whoever it is that I'm writing, I personalize it a little bit. But I let people know that I got the email, I got the text, I've seen it, and I'm coming back to you. And I want you to know that you're important.
I love that.
So that is something I do. I also set in my calendar, like my cousin just told me, she goes, oh my gosh, my daughter's graduation is tomorrow. I can't believe this. I have tears coming out of my pores. So in my calendar, took me 2 seconds, pulled it out tomorrow, made myself a reminder, check in on Jenna, because tomorrow is going to be an emotional day for her. So just shoot that text in the morning. I know it's going to be a hard day. Love you. Find joy in it, all whatever I'm going to say to her. And it's a reminder in my phone to connect with my cousin who I'll be thinking about tomorrow. And I want to make sure I get that done and I can move on to the other things in my day. But again, so she knows that I care. And it takes no time at all for me to set that reminder and then also do that tomorrow. So just finding a way to prioritize relationships in your life that make sense and are doable. But those small things mean the world to people.
They do. They the world. They totally do. You just made me think. So I learned, well, it was funny how I learned it, but many years ago, my kids went in my phone and they did the predictive text, those shortcuts. Have you ever seen those? Right. So anyway, I had this cat that kept showing up and her name was Barb. And so I was really trying to figure out where did Barb live, and Barb kept coming around. We didn't know her name was Barb. We just named her Barb. Anyway, and my kids went in my phone and they wrote this really funny thing that every time I tapped Barb, it came out, right? So I was like, wait a minute, what is this thing in your phone? So I did, when you just told me that, I was like, wait, I could do like a little shortcut for like call, like better than the one that comes with your phone that says call you later. But something that just says like, I saw this, like I'll talk to you tomorrow or whatever. And I just put like, L or whatever, and then that'll type, and then I could do that so fast.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think that's perfect. And again, it's a way to automate your life and in a concept and using technology that works for you. And that's amazing. That's the wonderful thing about technology. I won't condemn it in that way, but it's really comes down to knowing that in this very hyper, sensitive, overly booked world that we're in, that, those small things you can do it is connection. It is a hand reaching out and touching yours. And that's sometimes all you need. And I don't know how many times, I could never count, that people will say to me, I don't know how you remembered this doctor's appointment today. I told you about that 2 months ago. It's not so hard when you text me that. And then I just go right away into my calendar and put, Madison's doctor appointment. And then I'm going to be reminded in 2 months that it's happening. And then I wake up in the morning and say, thinking of you today, heart, done. And
these are all like, here's the thing. I feel like back in the day, I think about my parents, and they had this really big community in a village, and it was like so amazing, and I was like, gosh, I missed out on that. But I think that and I'm creating it now, but I think that like we blame, right? Like time, the circumstances that we can or we don't. But when I work with clients, like I'm going to definitely put this resource in around like life planning, because community is one of the areas of life, right? Like community is as important as anything. Your friends belong in that, and how do you contribute? And I think that just what you're saying is like, you can't write that off and be like, well, whatever, I didn't have that, or that doesn't work for me, or I'm an introvert. And you might be, but my guess is that even an introvert can find her place in the archetypes.
Absolutely. And also understanding too that I'm never going to tell you that the quantity is what you should be focusing on. It's the relationship.
Yeah, love that.
If you go out there and make 100 friends, I'm not telling you that you're necessarily going to be happy. Some of the busiest people I know are the unhappiest.
Yes.
They're not doing things that are making them happy or bringing them joy. And I'm totally in that category sometimes in my life where I'm like, why do I feel so mad?
Right.
I'm angry. I'm just like, I don't even want to deal with people. I feel like I'm up to here. And then I think to myself, well, what am I doing right now? I'll go look at my calendar. I'm like, well, this is exactly why I'm not happy right now, because I'm looking at everything that I'm doing and there's not one thing in there that is bringing me joy. There's no self-care. There's nothing that, I'm looking forward to. It's all just obligation after obligation. And so I'm always a person, who says, the moderation is key with it, but understanding too that even if you're an introvert, even if you weren't born into what I was saying before I was born into, I always think about that proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. And I love that. Every politician's used it, but I cut that in half. It takes a village. Because what happens if you don't have kids? Are you saying that you don't deserve to find your people then? And of course you deserve to find your people. So however you design your life, you are supposed to find your tribe. And you have the power to do that. And that's what I want everyone to feel, no matter what you were born into, socioeconomics, race, creed, religion. This is a place in your life where you can feel empowered, that you deserve this. You are worthy of this. So hopefully that's the feeling people get when they're trying to have that conversation with themselves, I guess, of like, what's missing in terms of connection in my life? And instead of saying, I feel bad that I need this or want this, you can say, I'm so grateful that I have figured this out and I am deserving of finding this, and I can't wait to find this, and I know now what to do to find it.
Right. And it's really not like what you're saying is there are small steps that you can take, that you can do it, but you have to get, like, just like anything, you have to get your ass right, the couch and do it. It's funny, when I was in my journey of doing this, I realized that, well, two things. One was that a lot of the people that were my friends were people that I worked with. And so once the work situation changed and I redesigned my business, I wasn't paying these people anymore. They weren't really my friends. So I think that's an interesting, I want to talk about that. And then the other point is, to that end, was I realized then, well, there's got to be a reason, like a common denominator, why I don't feel like this is a place where I'm having community. And instead of blaming the community, I was like, wait, well, I need to go find a place where I have shared values and common values, and then get really clear on, well, what does that even mean? So when we sold our house and we got in the RV and we drove around the world, around the country for a year, we got really clear on, the kind of people that would be in my tribe. But when I was just sitting in my little bubble, I didn't even know who that was or what that meant, because all I knew was what was going on in between here and me deciding these aren't my people.
Right.
Which, so what? Like, do something about it, right? So how do you, is that common? Like, you go, wait, all the people that are my friends are people that I work with or people that work for me, and then my work situation changes and I'm alone, or they go away.
It's normal, for that to happen, of course, because that's the environment, and maybe you're not part of that environment anymore. And so it doesn't mean, though, and this is the important piece of it, it doesn't mean that those relationships were any less valuable, or the time in your life that they were there, they were. And those were your people. But that season has changed. That chapter has ended.
Yes, love it.
Honor it. honor those people in your life at that time. It doesn't mean that the relationship was fake. It just means that the relationship is changing, and that's okay. And I feel like people, again, read too much into that and try to label it as something it's not, as fake or phony, or those people didn't really love me. I think honoring it for what it was in the season that it happened, that's the important piece of it.
Thank you. That was helpful. And then also realizing then that that community or your village isn't a finite thing, that as you shift and as you change and grow, this is something that moves. And I think that so many people hold on to stuff from the past because of that, right?
It's a living, breathing organism. It is.
Love that. Yeah.
It is. And, the only thing I can promise you is that the village is going to change. It's the only thing I can promise you in life.
Oh, I love that.
It's not going to stay the same. And instead of being afraid of that, it's lean into it and trust that if the village is changing, maybe it is for a reason. Maybe it's something that's protecting you. Maybe you're going to learn a lesson. Maybe you're going to meet the people that are supposed to be coming into your life at that right time. I don't know, but I would rather feel hopeful than fearful.
Oh, I love that. You know what I'm going to do after we hang up? I have some paleo, keto, some sort of chocolate brownie thing. My neighbors just had a baby, and I've been going for walks with them. I'm just going to go drop off some brownies.
And do you know what that will mean? That is huge, because you know what? They probably don't want a visitor, but they want the brownies. I'll tell you. I know. It's a way to do it. I'm going
to just actually do it instead of thinking about it for the last three months.
I love that.
Awesome. Well, you're brilliant. You have such great to do. I think this book is so important. This work is important because I think that when we're young, we sort of get this idea that friends and community is supposed to be something that just happens. And, for those of you that listen and maybe you went to, high school and then you went to college and maybe you joined a group or a community and it was easy. And then you come out and you're like, shit, I feel really lonely. That we never learned how to do it, and that there are action steps, and that you can cultivate and create it just like anything else that you create in your life. Community isn't a thing that just happens or doesn't. And connection is such a huge value for so many of us, especially women. So if you're alone and feeling like shite, you need to go get this book, Build Your Village, A Guide to Finding Joy and Community in Every Stage of Life. Thank you so much for being here, Florence Ann.
Thank you. What a pleasure. I felt like I was just sitting on a couch with you having a chit chat. It was so lovely. So thank you. Thank you.
Oh, ladies. Okay, so here's the thing. The name of the show is called Life Check Yourself. So, at the end, I ask you to do that. So I think that Florence Ann had a really great little homework assignment for you around how many people depend on you and how many people do you depend on. Maybe make the list. And instead of feeling sorry for yourself or angry about it, get the damn book, take action, go make some brownies for someone else and ask for help. You can find me, guys, by the way, on Marni Battista _ Instagram. You can also find me on Facebook Messenger. I'm also back on TikTok. I mean, I don't know. I'm not dancing, but I'm there giving some great advice on how to design life on your terms. You can find links to Florence Ann's great book in the show notes. Let us know what you're going to do to create village and community in your life today. We love you. See you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP. That's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to dwdvip.com. I'm Marni Battista, and let's talk soon.